Bienvenue à la 9e.
Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the 9th meeting of the Board of Internal Economy. First item, as always, adopting the minutes from the previous meeting. Do we all agree with the minutes? It seems like everyone is in agreement. Now, business arising from previous meetings. Mr. Perron. Thank you, Chair. I have two things that I would like to raise. I sent correspondence on the 29th of April because there was an issue with an event in Mirabel regarding the use of house resources. It was not mentioned in the documents. I wanted to know where we're at. I don't want to accuse anyone of anything without any proof, but I think that we need to verify how house resources were used for an event that seemed quite partisan. Are we going to speak to this during the next meeting? I'll set the floor to the clerk. Monsieur Perron, we received the letter. We are currently carrying out an analysis and we'll bring this back up at a future BOIE meeting. Secondly, unless anybody else had any comments on that. Secondly, Chair, the letter that we sent to the Translation Bureau from the Board of Internal Economy, we had two questions. We wanted information regarding the accreditation exam and what the process was, and also the request of parliamentarians to receive services from accredited interpreters and how many of these events were denied. I'm surprised to see that we still have not received an answer. Have you received an answer? We're hoping to receive answers by the next meeting, but we will be putting pressure on the Translation Bureau for some answers. Yes, well, those questions didn't seem to be that complicated, so I thought they would be easy to respond to, and so that was a concern. I also said that I would keep you posted regarding the work that we would be doing in collaboration with the minister who had opened the door to collaboration. I would like to inform you that we have set a date to meet up after the break. I have a lot of hope for that meeting and I will keep you informed. And between our different offices and between meetings, there are always new issues. And so I would like to share some information with colleagues just to show that this topic is still relevant and we need to continue speaking about it. There was an issue with witnesses in person in committee. There seems to be some unfairness there. And it had to do with in-camera meetings, so I won't go in depth in that topic right now. I wanted to inform my colleagues simply of the issue. Of course, there are time issues with interpretation as well, and I also received some information that the Translation Bureau had cancelled some accreditation exams for interpreters to receive their TR3, and that is deplorable. These interpreters have been training for a long time. It's a very difficult exam. They have a certain number of opportunities to pass this exam, and the fact that they cancelled it without any explanation or little to no explanation raises the same red flags that we had regarding the general accreditation. And so again, I would like to raise my concerns without any, and state that I don't have any concrete information for now. In discussions with the staffers, interpretation staffers, they have decided to maintain their right to strike during their negotiations. This doesn't mean that they will do so, but negotiations haven't started yet. They will be starting in a few months. And so if there were to be a conflict, that would perhaps arrive in a year. But that's what they're leaning towards, so we can be aware. And it must mean that their working conditions aren't going quite well. It has been flagged to me that in calls to offer and in the working conditions, there's a difference again between the English and the French versions. I find that incredible. I've spoken about this at the Board of Internal Economy. So there's correspondence shared with House Administration, the Minister, and the Translation Bureau, and these issues have not been fixed. This is coming from the Translation Bureau, and I think that this undermines the credibility of that institution. I think that this needs to be corrected quickly. And the last thing that I wanted to flag is that it was brought to my attention that the Justice Committee on April 29th, there was an issue between the English and French sections, and the clerk responded that usually the English was used predominantly. I don't think that that's an appropriate response. If they're writing documents, both languages should be as important. I don't want to accuse anyone, but hopefully these comments are being well received, Chair. I'm not trying to cause any trouble. I want to protect the French language and protect the status of both official languages. That's very important. Would you like to speak on that? Just briefly, Mr. Perron, regarding the predominance of one language over another, I would like to reassure you that's not the case. There can be line conflicts with amendments. So perhaps the response, or rather what you were given as information, because the English was adopted first, would have impacts on further amendments, but it's not that the English is predominant over the French. Well, that's what I thought, so thank you for reassuring me, but I will be able to send that with you, but so I'll soon be done, don't worry. All that to say, we're still waiting for a response to our questions. We're eager to receive these answers. I am following this file very closely, and we want things to be done properly. Thank you very much. Mr. Perron, I appeared before PROC a week ago. Oh, I didn't receive that. I didn't see that. Yes, I did speak to the quality of French. Thank you so much. I think that this brings us to item 3, the exception request. I believe that that was it for business arising from previous meetings. So I would invite Mr. Saint-Georges and Ms. Amrin, or rather, sorry, apologies, I read Stephanie and not Stefan. You have the floor. Thank you, Chair. The administration is requesting that the board speak to an exception request from a member. They're seeking a reimbursement of $9,577 that were charged to their office during the current fiscal year. $17,155 for telephone and internet bills has not been paid for services given to the riding office between 2022 and 2026. The administration concluded an agreement with the service provider in order to terminate the account following the closure of the office in July 2024 following a case of vandalism. This agreement allowed us to reduce the amount owing by about 50%.
An exception is requested as the bylaw does not permit reimbursements of expenses that are 2 years or older. As such, the outstanding amount of $9,577 of expenses incurred for the years 22-23 and 23-24 are not aligned with the bylaw. In previous similar cases, the board has generally supported exceptions where the expenses were legitimate and the circumstances were beyond the member's control. A decision on the member's request is therefore sought from the board, and this concludes my presentation, and welcome any questions.
Monsieur Scheer. Monsieur Perron.
Just for understanding, I understand that the rationale for the missed invoices was because there was a relocation of a office because of protests. Were those protests go on? Did they last for two years? Because the invoices are from July 2022 to July 2024. Was that entire time he was unable to use his constituency office?
The letter that was written by the member, that assumption is understood in there. However, in terms of whether or not that is fact, I do not know.
Okay. And I think the standard practice is that you can go back into previous fiscal years as long as there would have been adequate funds in a member's budget to cover it. Is that the case here as well? That he would have had enough resources to cover this had he just not missed them?
Absolutely. And when we look at the 25-26 fiscal year, because it's closed, if the board does approve, that is essentially why we'd be charging it to the 26-27 fiscal year.
Oui, bien sûr, on a toujours tendance à vouloir.
We always want to be agreeable, but I just want to understand. There was vandalism at the office, and so that led to closing the office, and then they forgot to pay for Bell services? Is that what the situation is? The office was closed because of vandalism. That's what was said in the letter from the member. And so the billing period, is that dating from the moment there was vandalism? Can you give me more information? The administration worked with the member and we were able to negotiate in order to reduce the amount owing up until the move. So this is $9,577 instead of $17,155. You're great at negotiating with Bell. That's not how I look at my bills, but and so will we allow Mr. Miller to pay this balance owing with the budget allocated for the next fiscal so that this can be refunded? Does everyone agree? Perfect. Approved. This brings us to item number 4, using House resources, or the use of House of Commons resources. This is again Mr. Saint-Georges and Mr. Amlin, who will speak on behalf of the administration. It's Mr. Workington.
The Conservatives wish to raise this.
Yeah, there was an issue that I did want to raise, and it was with regards to the allocations that were provided to,
No.
pardon.
Who's raising this issue?
It was at a request,
The Conservatives? Yeah, okay,
this, well, maybe they can explain the issue.
okay, okay, good.
Oh, pardon me, this was,
Number 4.
Yeah.
yeah, right. This was with regards to the request for information with regards to Miss Idlow's expenses that seemed to be to a business that she owned. Wanted to confirm that this was, that she herself had reimbursed these funds?
That is correct.
Okay.
The delegation in the system identifies the account of the member as approving the purchases.
Okay, but in terms of the reimbursement to the house, she herself?
That is correct, through the personal
reimbursed.
credit card.
Okay. And I don't think our body here has investigative powers to figure out exactly what went on there, but I suspect that, I mean, there's a lot of questions with regards to this. It seems bizarre, but as long as it's being reimbursed, I don't think we as a body here have any further deliberations. I suspect other bodies may.
We move on to item number 5. Internal Audit Charter, Plan and Annual Report. I'd ask Ms. Ruff to come to the table, and I just want to mention that I'd like to share with the board that this will be Jennifer's last presentation to us, as she will be soon retiring, and therefore I would like to thank her for her many years of loyal service to the House of Commons.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to seek the approval of the Internal Audit Charter, Plan, and Annual Report for 2026 to 2029 for the assurance engagements. So we focus on impartial examinations of controls and processes of the administration of the House, and we want to ensure that everything is done responsibly. The responsibilities and powers are a part of the Charter of Internal Audits. The clerk and I are in agreement with the Charter, and we will be signing off as soon as you have approved it.
Our plan in an effort to streamline review and reduce duplication of information. The annual report section, which covers the 2025-2026 fiscal year, summarizes the results of engagements completed in the past year and follow up on management actions to address previously completed engagements. The engagements outlined in the plan section of the document are selected through a risk analysis and are aligned with organizational priorities. Several key projects are scheduled for this year, including a review of project management and a compliance audit of administration travel. Given the results outlined in the report and the commitment from management to undertake the projects as outlined in the plan, I see no significant issues or risks at this time that require the attention of the board. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you. Merci.
Questions, comments? No. Oui, Monsieur Perron.
Juste une brève question.
Just a question. It's a similar question to my last one, or from last time. It's perhaps because I'm not fully familiar, but this charter for internal audits, this is, I understand, an internal audit, so how do you ensure that it is truly independent from the administration? I feel like there's a final step, a verification step that is missing that could be done by someone who is truly external. Thank you for the question. It is a good question regarding the operation of this audit. So, given the international standards for an internal audit, it focuses on our possibility to act impartially and without any influence from the administration. So, there is a functional requirement from the Board of Internal Economy. Every year, the board confirms the roles and responsibilities by approving the charter. In approving these engagements, the audit is done in collaboration with the administration, but it's the board who approves the audit. That way, the board ensures that the audit can be done independently from the administration. And so it is the board that maintains the independence of this internal audit. If I may add, that's a good question that you've raised, Mr. Perron. Larger organizations have an internal audit function, and maintaining independence for those groups is very important. As my colleague mentioned, she reports to me directly, yes, but she can communicate directly with the board. That is part of the charter. They also follow conventional standards for their audits. All of the auditors in her office are certified, and so they need to adhere to a code. There are some organizations who have externalized that process. They hire a third party to play that role. That is more costly compared to doing that internally. So they might, or rather, this leads to some dependence because they are still paid by the organization. And so it's not a perfect solution. There are challenges on both sides. So we are, in a way, the external and internal structure. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Ms. Ruff, and we wish you a good retirement.
Before we go on camera, I believe Mr. Garrettson and Mr. Warkington had matters they wanted to raise. We'll start with you, Mr. Garrettson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I will say we had an issue with the voting on Monday where the dashboard went down. This, as you can imagine, from our perspective, is very worrisome. We rely on that dashboard to continually be feeding information back to my office so that we can be tracking who's voting. And we were literally flying blind until that kind of came back on. And then there was some time given to the whip's desks to look at the lists and whatnot. What I want to ask at BOIE is that I know through discussions with Mr. Obey, part of the process or part of the revitalization of Center Block will include an opportunity to have more advanced notification systems with respect to when votes occur. And although that's not supposed to come online until Center Block is up and running again. So what I would like to ask, if the rest of the board agrees, is just to get an update from Mr. Obey, perhaps at our next meeting, with what it would entail to expedite that that feature. What I'm kind of picturing is something very similar to the bells that go off here that are happening on any phone that installs the notification system. I don't see it as being something that's connected to the app, the voting app itself, but more of just a notification thing. Just as another way to make sure members of all political parties, every member in the House, is aware of a vote when it's happening. People are relying more and more on voting with the app when you're in your constituency or if you're traveling for business or whatever it might be, making sure that people become aware of a vote. And the more ways that we have to do it, I realize an email goes out, but the more ways that we have to do it, I think is better. So what I'm asking at this point is just if you could come back to us at a future meeting, Mr. Obey, and just provide us with the impacts and perhaps an assessment of what it would require to bring this online sooner rather than waiting till 2030 or 2032, et cetera.
Want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Garrettson, for the correct question. Through you, Mr. Speaker, if there's support of the board to provide such an evaluation, we will.
Are you guys
Seeking
okay?
support from everyone.
Okay. You okay?
Oui, je comprends que mon collègue a peut-être eu chaud, là.
I understand that there were issues with the last vote, so we can definitely explore potential solutions. That's all I had to say, yes.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres choses, monsieur? Is there anything else, Mr. Okay. Mr. Warkington?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to draw the attention to board members that there seems to be a report back from JIC that there's been kind of a lopsided reduction in budget to Canada-US, the association, for parliamentary diplomacy work that's been done by that organization. It seems to be a 40% cut to that budget, where other associations got increases in their budget. That's a report that I've received back. Obviously, right now with Canada-US relationship being of paramount importance as we try to resolve the trade conflict there, I'm just not sure if there's a way that there could be a review of that to determine. I've just heard reports back from members from several parties that they do believe that this will have a negative impact on the work that is being undertaken there in terms of building relationship with our counterparts south of the border.
Thank you for raising that issue, Mr. Workington. I'll hand it over in a moment to my colleague Jeffrey, who can give a bit of a breakdown as to what the different associations received for the upcoming fiscal year. As it happens to be, the co-chair of the JIC, the House co-chair of the JIC, will be appearing at the next board meeting on JIC-related matters, so that might be an ideal opportunity to raise this issue. But Jeffrey, you might have some details for us.
Thank you. I can confirm indeed that many associations saw rather significant reductions to their budget allocation. That's for a couple of reasons. The envelope has about an extra $300,000 that are being spent this year, both for international contributions and for the hostings of some small conferences, which meant there was less money to allocate overall. You are correct, though, that there are a couple of associations that did see increases according to the formula that the JIC observed, but it is correct to say that many associations also saw reductions. I suspect when the JIC co-chair comes at the next meeting, that'll be a topic of discussion.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
We'll move in camera now.